Hey, what is going on guys? RZ Stealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some new Sleeper OP champions, builds, and rune setups for patch 8.18. Now before we get started, this video is going to be sponsored by Trophy Hunter, which is a free Overwolf app. So Trophy Hunter has trophies which are similar to the missions in League, and there's a lot of different trophies that you can try out and try to beat, and when you do end up completing the trophies, you're going to gain trophy points, and with these trophy points you can climb up the ladder, and when you do get enough points you can enter into RP giveaways that they do end up running. The app is also going to provide you with an overlay in-game, which is going to tell you information about your teammates, the enemy teammates. It's going to give you recommended builds, recommended ability maxing, and stuff like that. So not only does it have the trophy system and the missions built into the app, but it also does have a really nice in-game feature as well. And on September 21st here, so this upcoming weekend, Trophy Hunter is hosting a challenge to see who can get the most trophies in 3 days, and anyone can participate in this, and there are going to be prizes that you can win if you do get the most trophies. So there is going to be a link down in the description below that you can use to go ahead and download Trophy Hunter. I would really appreciate it if you guys did take a look, and thank you in advance if you do decide to. So if we get into the video now, there's a couple interesting picks in the mid lane that are being played a lot right now by pro players in this patch, and the first one here is Aatrox mid. So Aatrox mid is a pretty interesting pick because it does pretty well into a lot of the most picked mid laners right now. Kassadin is a very hard champion to deal with in this patch, and Aatrox is a great pick into Kassadin. You can really bully that champion in the laning phase. You can have a great laning phase against it, and you are going to run the Ignite on this Aatrox mid, so you do have a lot of kill pressure in that matchup. Aatrox's level 2 all-in in the mid lane against a lot of these squishy mages or just squishy mid lane champions is really good, and if you can get that level 2 before your opponent, go for an all-in. The enemy is not going to expect it a lot of the time because chances are they've really never played against Aatrox mid. You don't see this pick a ton, so you can really abuse the fact that he does have a very strong early game and the enemy is not going to really respect that. And then for the build there on Aatrox, more and more players are going for a Youmuu's second item after the Black Cleaver. Youmuu's second is going to give you 30% CDR very early on into the game, and it's also going to provide you with that bonus movement speed from the active, and the active movement speed there on the Youmuu's paired with the movement speed from your ultimate just really allows you to stay very mobile in team fights, and it allows you to reach the back line and reach your target a lot easier. So if you have not tried out Youmuu's second on Aatrox, then I would definitely recommend it. So another AD mid lane pick here that is being played by quite a bit of pro players and being played in the higher elos in this patch is Urgot mid. So Urgot mid is kind of similar to the Aatrox mid in the sense that he's really good into these other melee champions in the mid lane. So picks like the Kassadin, like the Akali, Urgot can do very well into. He can also do great into stuff like Katarina, Talon, Zed, just these AD or these melee champions in the mid lane. Urgot can do great into for this patch. Those melee champions can't really do a ton against Urgot in the laning phase because if they try to jump on him, if they try to trade with him, he's got a shield and he's also a very strong champion. If you do end up actually getting into melee range of him, he's going to flip you back. His W is going to deal a ton of damage. He also does have his Q there, which provides him with a ranged poke ability in the laning phase. So he's overall just a great pick into other melee champions, and he's a pick that you can see a lot of success with in this patch. So next up here is an underrated build for Aurelia for this patch, and it's Wit's End on Aurelia mid lane. So Aurelia mid lane with the Wit's End is becoming more and more popular for this patch. A lot of different pro players are running it right now, and it's really good if you are up against an AP mid lane champion who does have a lot of burst or a lot of kill threat against you. It's really good into stuff like LeBlanc or Syndra. If you do go for the Wit's End, it's going to be very hard for them to actually burst you down, and it makes Aurelia a very strong pick in that 1v1 matchup. Now, Wit's End is a lot better on Aurelia than most champions because Aurelia actually does do quite a bit of magic damage. Her passive, her E, and her ultimate all deal magic damage, and with the passive on Wit's End, whenever you auto attack, you're going to be stealing the enemy's magic resist, so it does actually allow Aurelia to deal quite a bit more damage while also keeping her really tanky. Now, depending on the matchup, you're going to go Wit's End first or Wit's End second. You don't want to be passing up on the Trinity Force. You still build Trinity Force on Aurelia because it's a great item for her. But depending on that matchup, go the Wit's End first if the enemy does have a lot of kill threat in the laning phase and you think that you could get bursted out. If you don't think the enemy does have a ton of kill threat though, or if you are snowballing in the early laning phase, then you can go for the Trinity Force Rush. Now, a jungle pick that was really strong last season that is seeing a little bit more play now in this patch is Ezreal Jungle. So Spirit has been spamming this in solo queue over the past week, and Ezreal Jungle is a pick that you do really need to know how to play well in order to succeed with it, because he's a pick that if you don't do too much early, if you fall behind on him early, then he is one of the most useless junglers. But if you can play his early game well, if you can pressure well in the early game, then he can be a pretty strong pick. Now, what he's been running on the Ezreal Jungle is the Dark Harvest there. Now, some other players have been running Phase Rush on the Ezreal Jungle, and you can have success with both of those two runes. I think it does come down to personal preference, but the Dark Harvest there is going to give you a lot of scaling power, and it is going to give you a lot of upfront damage with your Q poke. If you can get rolling on this pick though, if you can get a lead in the early game, then he does have a much earlier power spike than Ezreal bot lane, because you don't build tier on Ezreal Jungle, you go warrior straight into the Trinity Force, and once you do complete those two items, you have a really nice early to mid game spike, and you can really start to take over with this pick. So another more unconventional jungle pick that is pretty good for the current meta is Poppy Jungle with the Predator. So Poppy Jungle is great into things like Rengar, Lee Sin, Camille, any champion that does have this telegraph, like gap closing ability that Poppy can use her W on. She can do great in that matchup because Lee Sin, if he does not connect with this second portion of his Q, then he's not going to be able to deal a lot of damage to you. Same with Camille, if she does not hit her stun on you, then she's not going to be able to win the 1v1 a lot of the time. So you can do great in those matchups with Poppy as long as you do have a decent reaction time and you can use your W in the correct situations. And then by running the Predator on the Poppy Jungle, it does give you a lot of gank threat in the early game. What you can do is you pop the Predator and you can really get a good positioning for a stun when you're coming in for a gank. You can either try to get behind the enemy and use your E to knock them back into your team, or you can just have your Predator pop with the bonus movement speed, just look to find the correct position to line up that stun up against the wall, and you can have a lot of successful ganks with this Poppy Jungle pick. And then a rune setup for Lee Sin that is becoming more and more popular after the Electrocute nerfs is the Dark Harvest on Lee Sin. This is what most Korean and Chinese players are running on their Lee Sin right now. In NA and in EU, a lot of pro players are still running the Electrocute, so it does kind of differ between the regions as to which rune players are prioritizing, but the Dark Harvest there is definitely a very good option now on Lee Sin. It actually does have a better win percent as well over Electrocute for solo queue, so if you have yet to try out some Dark Harvest Lee Sin, then I would definitely give it a shot. A support pick that has been on the rise over the past few patches is Gragas support with the Aftershock and then with an E max. This E max is really good on Gragas support because once you do get 40% CDR, your E is going to be on a 4-second cooldown. With Gragas's E, whenever you do land it, it reduces the cooldown of the ability by 3 seconds. So this means that in mid-game teamfights, your E is going to be on just a super short cooldown. It's going to allow you to peel really well in fights, it's going to allow you to engage and just be a really strong disruptor in those mid-game team fights. Gragas support also does have really nice kill threat in the laning phase. Your level 2 all-in can be really strong, your level 6 all-in can be very strong, and then you do also have some really nice gank assist. As long as you can get your body slam flash down, then you can just do a great job at setting up ganks in the early game and getting your lane rolling. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. That was what I was able to find for this patch when doing the research for this video. Unfortunately, I wasn't really able to find anything for the top lane or for the bot lane or for AD carry there that was like underrated or sleeper OP for this patch. So it's not because I'm choosing to ignore top lane and bot lane. I just wasn't really able to come up with anything that was super underrated for 8.18. If you guys did enjoy this video though, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.